Howdy YouTube, Big Phil back here again with you for another Friday, because it's time for another Fridays with Phil episode. As you'll see behind me here, I'm in a different room today, just because it's just easier. I got a new laptop and whatnot, so I figured why not use it. Still using the same cam, so hopefully it still looks good. But it's just more conducive to do it in here because there'll be less people, walking through and whatnot to do it from here. So it should be easier to record. Anyhow, today we're going over the help question and then some other various tidbits that were kind of left over from what we didn't get to cover in the last couple of videos. So I'm just going to wrap all of those in at the end. We'll go over the help question first because I told you guys that we were going to cover that. So I want to get that out of the way first because it's important. And, let's just get it done. So, this whole process is really interesting because while I created it to help educate you as the viewer and hopefully inspire and share my insights, and also just to use it as a simple form of a personal outlet for me. I'm still not, totally sure how effective that's been up to this point. Maybe just because it hasn't been long enough, for that to really come through yet. But I think it's also because I'm just my own worst critic insofar as like creative stuff goes for me. I tend to be pretty harsh on myself for that sort of stuff. So it'll take some time. Um, but yeah, we'll just see how it goes, and I'll keep putting these up as long as you guys don't tell me not to, and then we'll just keep moving. So I I hopefully haven't been I don't know, I feel like with the first few videos, and this was true of the first several blog posts as well, that maybe I've been, rather consistently negative towards the viewer, um, just because, I've kind of started out with some things that are, I bring it up and it's like, hey, X, Y, or Z is annoying, to me. Um, it's something that everyone else does, and it's annoying and it's a pain in the butt for me to deal with personally. Um, so please go ahead and change that or fix that. And I don't want to do that too much. I don't want to badger anybody with negativity. That's not why I'm here. That's not I'm not trying to look. Mainstream society does that enough to us on a consistent basis. I don't want to do that to you guys as well. So I'm trying to be better than that because everybody can be better than that. So let's just agree that we're not going to badger either side here. Um, So, as I said before, I promised that I would do the help question, that I would go over it. So, let's just jump right into it. Um, asking for help is essential for learning and growing, no matter who we are or what we're doing. Um, each of us needs help from others at different times and for various reasons. Uh, this is also true for those of us with disabilities. Uh, which means, in essence, like I think we've kind of already said this, like that means everyone, right? Because everyone has something that is wrong with them, something that doesn't function quite right, something that could be categorized as a disability, even if it's not, officially a disability type of thing. It still kind of is. Here, let me fix this real quick. Um, okay, so in any case, you know, everybody has something that holds us back. We all struggle with something. There's some vice that we have to deal with, and so that's kind of what the disability is. Um, and sometimes it's hard to get past the pride that we have in trying to solve our own problem. Everybody wants to fix their own stuff, right? We want to solve it ourselves because we know how to do it best, or rather, we think we know how to do it best. Yeah. Um, yeah. So we don't necessarily want to ask for help. Sometimes, even if we really should, and that can it can be okay sometimes, but it can also cause issues. I know that it's a struggle for me sometimes because I have to choose to be humble enough to recognize that I need someone else's help with some of the things that I need and want to do, whether it's something that I really need to do or something that I just want to do. I have to realize that I cannot do all of it by myself every single time because I just, for various different reasons, it's just not going to work that way for me to do it all myself. So I have to be willing to go out and say, hey, I need help with this. I've worked at it. I've gotten better at doing it, but I'm by no means an expert on asking for help at this point. I still struggle with it, you know, every so often. Just going to that other person and saying, "Hey, can you help me with this?" Um, you know, and then I think the other thing, the thing that I kind of want to focus on is when other people ask me, and I get the question, and they're like, "Do you need help with that?" Or "Do you need me to help?" Um, and you know, in general, I don't really mind the initial question. Uh, Rather, it's some of the things that have come after I give my response that have bothered me. Um, when I'm asked that question, my response depends on what I'm doing. Have I done that thing before? Have I done it successfully before? Or if I just tried to do it and failed to do it. And then also factored into that is just what sort of day am I having at that particular time that I'm asked? Because all of those things factor in and make it a bit different as to how I respond to that question. If enough of those things are positive, though, I'm most likely going to respond with something like, if I know uh, that I can do it, because I've done it before and I know what I'm doing, and someone just sees me trying to do it, and maybe it takes me a little bit longer than they think it should, so they come over and they ask if I need help. Um, but I know that I don't because, excuse me, excuse me. Um, but if I know I don't, then I'm going to say something like, "No, thanks. I've got it. I can get it done." Um, and that should be an indication to the person that is asking me the question, um, or I intend it at least to be as such, that I'm confident enough in whatever it is that I'm attempting to do, uh, in order that I can do it myself, no matter what it may look like from the other side of that. Whether because your perspective, someone else's perspective of what I'm trying to accomplish and the speed that I'm doing it at, or the way that I'm doing it, may be totally different than the way that you think it should be done, or that someone else thinks it should be done. Uh, but that doesn't mean that I'm not going to end up at something that is successful for me. um, it just looks different um, from the other side. Sometimes it looks like I'm struggling, um, but if I tell you, that I've got it, then that means most likely I'm trying to figure out a way that I can complete the task myself, so that when other people are not around, I can get it done. Because, yeah, help is great when there are other people around to help, right? But, you know, if I'm by myself, then, and I still want to do whatever that thing is, um, then I've got to figure out a way to do it myself. So I may try to figure that out, my own personal way of doing it while there are people around to help, so that if I really, really get stuck, then I can say, hey, I need you to assist, because I've tried this this way of doing this and I got stuck, so I now need you to help me fix it. But otherwise, I'm just trying to figure it out myself, so that I can get it done later, when there's not anybody around. Yeah, so that's kind of why I would answer it uh, that way. Most people are pretty good about accepting my answer and then letting me do my own thing. But for whatever reason, some folks feel the compelling need to kind of force themselves on me anyways, and kind of force their help and just help me anyway the way that they think is helpful. That's another key thing, is that sometimes people will do things that, especially if you don't ask first, and the person just jumps in and does it the way that they think it should be done, or the way that they think is best, because they haven't consulted with me. They've just said, hey, do you need help? And I'm like, no. And then they're like, oh, well, here, let me just do it for you. It may be that you end up doing it, or that someone ends up, sorry, it may be that someone ends up doing something for me in a way that then hinders me later, because it's not set up the way that I normally have it set up, and so then it throws off everything else. So I try to encourage people to not just force their help, uh, anyways. And you know, I'm not really totally sure why they think it's such a huge need for them to do that sometimes. Um, and I have this, it's kind of an over exaggerated example of someone forcing their assistance on me when I, was totally fine, and could have done it myself. So when early on in my college career, I was living in a dorm, and they had the little uh, cards that you swipe, at the door, to get into your room. And so, of course, I had done this many times, before this particular entrance, you know, instance, and I was successful, and I knew what I was doing, and I knew how to put the card in, and swipe it, and then manage to open my door and get through and make the whole thing work. So I knew totally what I was doing, and it wasn't a big deal. But one day I was carrying some stuff, back to my room, and I had already thought ahead, before I even got down the hallway. It's like, okay, I'm gonna have this stuff set up. So I had it all on my lap, but I had it set up in such a way that it would still allow me to then use the key card to get into the room. Um, and some random guy ran into me as we were coming down the hall, and his our conversation went something like this. He goes, "Do you need some help with the door?" And I was like, "No, thanks. I can do it." Him, "Are you sure?" Me, "Yep. I've done this a bunch of times. It just takes a second." And then he proceeded to be like, "Here, I got it." And literally, I kid you not, I had my card in my hand, um, I was literally holding it up like this. If I had a card here in my fingers, uh, I was holding it up like this in, in my hand, and I was getting ready to swipe it, and he literally grabbed it and then swiped it and pushed the door open for me before I could hardly even blink, almost. And he just kind of done it, and it was just like, okay, dude, I told you point blank that, I was trying to be polite. I told you that I could do it. I told you I had done it before and that I was successful. And, I had everything under control. Um, but yet he just forced himself to help me anyways, even after I had said no. Um, and in that sense, like it really didn't help me, because he was kind of taking away my independence in that sense, um, because it was something that I had already been successful at and something that I knew that I could do without assistance. For him to then, for I didn't even know the guy, right? So if it had been a friend of mine or something, then maybe, I would have had more of a chance of letting them assist because I at least trust the person to open my door and not like run in and take a bunch of, and that was the other thing. It's kind of a security thing. So I'm like, okay, what if this guy like tries to run it? So I blocked the door real quick so that there was no way that he could actually get in once he had pushed it open for me to go in. But still, it was just like, dude, what are you doing? Like that just flat out rude. Um, so, anyways, uh, you know, if look, so normally, if you offer me help and I need it, then I'm gonna accept it, or I'll find if I need help and you haven't asked yet, then I may end up asking you if you're the only person around, probably. If you're not the only person around, then I may ask someone else. It just depends. Like if I know I need help and it's something that I really, really can't do, um, I'm either going to accept you when you ask, or I'm going to go find someone and ask them. Um, it's kind of a complicated issue because I want people to ask, but I also want them to pay attention and listen to what I'm saying when I do respond to the fact that they've asked. So that kind of wraps up the help question. Uh, yeah, so now I kind of want to tackle the book and public speaking questions uh, as well, because if you remember back when I did the questions in general thing, we covered some things, but there were still these couple of questions that are out there that I haven't covered yet. So I want to go over those and take the time to do that, just so that all of that early stuff is wrapped up and we can continue to move forward with this as we go along. So, first I'll take the book question because that's an easy question to answer. So generally I've had one of two questions, or sometimes both. Uh, One of them is, have you thought about writing a book? And then the other one is, well, why don't you go ahead and write a book? Um, Now, as far as that goes, uh, I tried writing a fiction novel when I was in high school. I went ahead and created a bunch of custom stuff um, for the content. I wrote a fair bit of material, uh, but then I got busy and I got interested in other things, and my schedule got more filled with school and other stuff. Um, at the time I used it as a creative outlet, and for me those tend to kind of come and go. Um, just depending on where I'm at in my journey. God presents me something that I can use at the at that particular point in my life as an outlet, and I use it for a while. It's for as long as it seems necessary, for as long as it assists me, and then when it's no longer needed, when I've kind of moved past needing that particular outlet for whatever reason it is, um, then I tend to kind of naturally move on. It's not really a hard break. It just kind of, I end up getting interested in other things, and so I kind of move away from whatever that previous outlet was. So that's kind of what happened with the book. Um, Now, of course, this comes from a blog post, so I was writing actively on the blog, and I probably still will do some of the blog stuff as we move forward, just so that there's content in both places. Um, but again, kind of why the blog instead of like writing an autobiography or something. Um, just this kind of covers the um, well, it covers both of the questions. So have I thought about it? And why not just write a book? So yeah, why not an autobiography? At one point, someone had suggested that I write some sort of book for the benefit of other people, uh, and I did consider it. Um, I prayed about it, and I decided that the blog was a better option than writing an autobiography. Because honestly, after only 2 decades of being here, I'm only mid 20s, so I just felt like trying to write an autobiography about such a relatively short length of time. It would have been, dismissed because I don't, um, I'm not the kind of person that's lived, a really long time, and has all kinds of, extra wisdom and stuff from being here for a long, long time. Uh, I get some people that consider me to be wiser than my age, um, you know, and that's fine. Like, I don't have a problem with that. But in that case, any of those people are free to contact me, and we could talk about whatever you want. Um, but I don't think most people see me that way, which is fine, um, because I don't want to be, the crotchety old grandpa yet. I'm not looking to be 80 years old yet. Um, so if you don't see me as old, that's fine. It doesn't bother me. Um, okay, so that kind of covers the book stuff. So for the speaking question, have I considered it? Have I considered public speaking? Well, yep, yep, sure have. Have I done it? Yep, I've done it. I have done some public speaking, several times over, in fact. Um, it just takes someone who, wants me to tell my whole story, or tell a part of it, or give advice on a particular uh, topic or something, and all you have to do is ask me and say, hey, Phil, will you come and talk about this or that or the other, to this group or that group or whatever, and if we can make it work, then sure, yeah, um, that's no problem. We can, I can get that set up. Um, so, uh, you know, but doing it, so I do it every now and then. If people ask, um, if you have something that you need me uh, to talk about to a particular group or whatever, um, but doing it full time. Look, if you guys find somebody who wants to pay me to talk to groups of people all the time about what I know, and where I've been and who I am, and they're going to give me a consistent paycheck, then let me know. Um, Fine. But for now, since I don't know who those people are or really how that fits, then no, I'm not doing it full time at this point. As I've said, I'm a people person, very much so. So talking to people about just about anything is really part of what I thrive on. So it's not a problem at all. Um, and that this kind of rounds out the current, well, the first set of questions, we'll say that. So this should sum up everything from the first, what, 4 videos now, I think. Um, well, I mean, there were a couple of other ones that were in there, like the intro and when I got the new webcam and whatever. So yeah, so this should round out this current group of stuff. Um, anyways, if you have questions about what I've talked about here for this week's episode, please let me know. Please ask questions. Again, those are important. If you have them, please ask. Don't just hold on to them, because I want to know, what you're asking, because someone else may be asking the same question. And then, if I think it's something big enough, then we can make it a topic, and I can insert it in there, where I think it's going to fit, or I can point you to the proper video where you may have missed what I had already said somewhere along the way, or if you're new or whatever, that's fine. If you want my perspective on another topic, or you just have a request for a topic, again, please let me know. Comment here, send me an email, tweet at me, do something to get my attention. Let me know. Anyways, let's see. So next week we are going to talk about. Hold on, I'm pulling it up here. Yeah, so next week is kind of interesting, because I'm going to touch a little bit on pain. It's kind of your introduction as a viewer to my perspective on pain and loss, and kind of how we deal with that. Yeah, so we're going to look at that. It may be kind of short. I may expand it, past what the blog post has. So if you hear something next week that, you go back and you look at the post and you say, hey, that's not in here, that's because I've added it, because, it's useful for right now, rather than just, from when it was originally posted. So yeah, we're gonna I'm gonna ease you into pain. We'll get to some more in-depth discussion of things like pain and suffering, and how to deal with those sorts of things, or how I deal with those sorts of things, as we move along in later videos in the coming weeks. But anyways, for now, that's the end of what I've got for you for this week. So again, comment, like, subscribe, email me, tweet me, whatever. Have a good week, everybody. Stay safe, stay dry, and I'll see you again next week. Big Phil out.